Hey, it's Jordan, still here in South Bend, Indiana, and a little late night chat with some leading activists here, specifically in the Black Lives Matter movement, which has really gotten some much needed attention for South Bend in the last few months. And I've been here for a few days. Obviously, my focus has been bringing attention to presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg and kind of putting out or trying to, show some more of the reality as opposed to the media picture that's been painted about him. But I really want to get into South Bend issues tonight in addition to him. So let me first ask you, just as BLM leaders, what's been, before it was presidential candidate Pete, what's been your pattern of relationship going up against Mayor Pete and his administration? Have they been cooperative? Have they tried to get you at the table, or was it hostile, pretty much from the front?
Well,
I should say, Kat.
Hey, yeah, I'm Kat. So we've sat at the table. We've put things on the line, as far as like the implicit bias training and the civilian review board with subpoena power. We've definitely advocated for those things and cultural competency and things like that. And it's kind of just been a no. So, yeah, we've definitely tried to do as much as we could with, speaking with the mayor and things like that. But it's been a no.
And was he at that table, or was it his administration folks? What was his direct involvement?
It was definitely Mayor Pete at the table, and it was just kind of like, we'll get back to you, or just no.
And was there any, because it seems like there's a pattern of him saying, well, we'll study the issue, or we'll hire a focus group or something like that. Was there any talk of that? Like, I need to analyze before making...
That's Mayor Pete's go-to move, like, okay, we're going to take that into consideration. We'll get back to you, or he just was like, no, I'm not interested in it. So, kind of left us with our backs against the wall.
And some people I interviewed earlier, kind of activists, specifically we were talking about homelessness, but they kind of indicated that he's made statements in the past. I don't know if he said it exactly like this, but like that he wants South Bend to be a place where affluent people could come. Obviously, you could see the real beautification of a certain 5 to 10 block radius. I mean, it's gentrification 101, but that he's kind of signaled that he wants it to be more of a business community, young professionals, maybe of a certain class, of certain color. Have you gotten the vibe that he really takes to heart issues of the black community, or that he's just trying to kind of do the bare minimum where he wouldn't be criticized?
Well, the working class is kind of non-existent to Mayor Pete at this point. I think South Bend overall is just a college town and a retirement place, and a place for elitists at this point. So, yeah, it's not anything that belongs to the working class or the poor or the African Americans to belong to. So,
and you've had a lot of experience with him too. You say some things he's tried. We were talking about homelessness before.
Some things. I just said on that one thing. Yeah, I don't want to make it seem like he's done a significant amount of things. Like, he really hasn't. But I think to her point, he's tried to push issues off. He said that he wants to study them. But in reality, we don't see any substantive change. So, for example, when she mentions that we push for a civilians review board, where we've talked about implicit bias training, civilian review, I'm sorry, not civilian review, but cultural competency tests for officers, he's not been willing to have that kind of conversation. So after the Eric Logan shooting, we came to him with a proposal to administer a cultural competency exam to...
I just want to make sure for the audience, Eric Logan was a 54-year-old black male. He was shot and killed by a white officer. The white officer's police camera was off. The white police officer claims that Eric Logan had a knife. They claim that he was breaking into cars. Again, the officer who shot him's body camera was off. So were two other officers at the scene. Body cameras were off. So it's been a very controversial topic.
So I'd like to just put some emphasis on it. Not only was it just a random police officer, he was actually a sergeant, 20-year veteran. So just to put that on the record too. So he's not
a sergeant. But the bottom line is you got three officers at the scene, including the one who shot him. No body cameras on. Sorry, Jordan.
So I was just saying that after he was murdered, we put a proposal before Mayor Pete to administer an intercultural development inventory test to officers. It's called IDI. And if you Google it, IDI South Bend, you'll see articles, local articles here, where we've talked about the importance of that test. And he said that he thought it was a little bit pricey because it was about $150 maybe to administer the exam to each officer on the force. It might have been $50. I can't remember exactly, but the total cost was about $60,000. He said that was pretty pricey, and that if they were to conduct some kind of test like that or administer it, it would have to go for an RFP, which means a request for proposals, because anything over about $20,000 or $25,000, the administration has to put out a request for proposals. Well, instead, he funded a study that costs about $181,000 that will look at police policies and then move towards reforming them and tracking whatever. We don't really know. I mean, again, if you look up, I think it's 21CP or CP21 at South Bend, you'll find that the council appropriated money for the study, but they didn't really even know what they were funding. And even some council members said, well, we asked some questions, but they didn't give us an explanation as to what the scope of the study is. So he got money for that, and we've met with those consultants and we've talked about our issues. But again, these are issues that we've already expressed and raised to his administration. So our issue was that, look, like, you have officers who allegedly are racist, and we know now, after going to 8 meetings, community advisory meetings, which have been called for by his Board of Public Safety, where we've discussed police policy and police training and police hiring, firing, and promotion practices, that your officers are not receiving enough cultural competency training or implicit bias training. In fact, it's not even required training. Okay, so we're saying you need to first understand where your officers are as it relates to cultural competency, and then from there, develop a plan as to how they will become more culturally competent. And if they're found to be if they're found to lack cultural competency, they don't need to be in our communities. It's well within your ability to have your chief of police remove those possibly racist or at least biased police officers from our communities. You can do this right away. That's why Tiana said at the meeting, the town hall meeting that was disrupted during the summer at Washington High School, that you can administer this exam and reorganize your department by Friday. I mean, you can administer this exam to your officers and you will get results within 2 hours. Like, we put that tool before you. We've done the work. That's what you want, is for people to step up. You want this to be a participatory government democracy. You want to empower residents. Well, we're in power and we want them out. And this is how you can determine, as you just said, if any officer is found to be racist. Well, we're not saying they're going to be found to be racist, but they might lack in the kind of cultural understanding that they would need to properly police our communities. Now you have a measure that will help you determine who needs to be removed from our communities. But he said that would be too pricey at $60,000, and he decided to commission a study for $181,000 with no scope.
You know, it's interesting. I was going to latch on to that phrase. He said it would be too pricey. Correct me on the numbers, because I could be wrong. Didn't he spend $25 million on a skater park here? A park for skaters? Hasn't he paid obscene amount of money to put statues in roundabouts, to beautify certain areas? I don't even say that as I'm really asking, hasn't he spent a very obscene amount of money for optics, but for things like making sure his police who have lethal weapons aren't, at worst, racist, at best, incompetent? He says $60,000 is too much money. See, to me, that shows somebody's worldview and priorities.
Yeah.
It seems that it's not too expensive if it will give tax abatements to business to bring in more business. It's not too expensive if it will, artificially lower the unemployment rate. But it is too expensive if it's for working people or vulnerable people of color.
But I think it's to hit the nail on the head. I mean, like, you probably wouldn't even need any money if he's viewed those tapes. I mean, you should just get rid of those people. You probably don't even need to.
According to former communications officer, Kat, what's her name?
Karen DePape.
Karen DePape, who just went on a radio show.
Said
He's heard the tapes.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the tapes, if you don't know, are allegedly.
Come on now. Now, P is a master of language, all right? So he's right. He did not hear the tapes. That's what it says. I didn't hear what was on the
He
tapes.
made sure he didn't hear them.
Yeah, he made sure that he did not hear those. But his attorneys know, based on her testimony, what is on the tapes.
Yeah.
So they are aware of what potentially is on the tapes. But
And this was the tapes where officers were making racial comments about a black police officer.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Status